beautiful people. What's good? How are you all doing? Welcome to the College for the Culture podcast. So today we're going to talk about how to pass the annoying and challenging test that is the SAT, or Scholastic Assessment Test. So I took this test and I'm nowhere near an expert, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert. So to help you all out, I have a very special melanated guest with me who's going to give you all advice on how to pass this exam. So with me, I have the wonderful Jessica Bonner Gomez, who is the founder and CEO of Four Other Prizes Consulting, which offers lots of tutoring services, including for the SAT and ACT. So hello, Jessica. I'm so excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
Hello, Rachel. I'm very well. I'm also glad to be here. I hope you are well also.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Now that you're here, I'm excited. So great. We're going to dive into these questions real quick. But first, say quickly what your pronouns are and what college you went to, because this is like a college podcast. So just to break the ice a little bit.
And I actually went to I actually went to three colleges. So my first one, which is where I received my first bachelor's, was at Samford University, which is in Birmingham, Alabama. And then I went on to the University of Alabama at Birmingham to earn my master's degree in English. And then I went on to the University of Montevallo in Montevallo, Alabama, to earn my bachelor's and master's in the field of speech language pathology.
Wow. She's established, okay? Like more than one degree, like I don't think that could be me, you guys. So that's amazing. Now we're going to get into these questions. So I'm going to do it. So I'm going to do it section by section so we can have a lot of advice on each section. So first we're going to talk about the SAT reading section. So there are 5 passages, 52 questions, and it's only 65 minutes to complete this. Now, I remember like these passages are really boring and it's really hard to stay focused on these passages. And they're so long that time is just not on your side for this section. So how can somebody do well in the SAT reading section?
Okay, one of the pieces of advice that I would give is just practicing reading ahead of time in advance of taking the SAT. So obviously, the more reading that you do in a variety of genres, not just something that if you are a reader, not just the area of reading the genre that you like, but in a variety of genres. So the whole point of that is that, of course, you won't always like what you're reading, but you will become more acclimated to the vocabulary that's being used, the different types of tones that are being used by the authors that are writing there, whether it's a magazine article or you're reading a book or something like that. People have different tones. So you definitely want to allow yourself to read a variety of material ahead of time. Another thing I like to look at is, for instance, from a song perspective, I like to integrate music in my tutoring with my students. Pick out a favorite song and then practice breaking down the pieces of that song. For instance, try to figure out the tone of the person who's narrating what's said in the lyrics. Is the person feeling sad? Is the person feeling happy? Then write down a few sentences about that. What are your observations? What are your pieces of evidence that you're noting in the song that backs up the fact that the narrator is either sad, happy, whatever? So practice that. I also have the piece of advice to make sure, for instance, when you're doing your questions and you're trying to figure out what's the right answer, always engage in process of elimination, because you never know. You might find yourself feeling like 2 or 3 answers look right, but that is why process of elimination is so beneficial. If you go ahead and knock out at least 2 out of the 4 options, then you're left with 2 and you have a 50-50 percent chance of getting the answer correct. And obviously at that point where you're left to those 2 choices, go back into your passage and find evidence for it. Don't find what you think might be right. Find actual evidence to back up the answer choice that you decided to select. And more than likely, you will have the right answer choice selected.
Mm, that's some good advice. Now, with a reading, I know this is a section where like time is like, it's like time just wants to be moving fast. And before you know it is over, and you still have two passages left, which is not great. So, how should somebody like pace themselves when taking this section? Like, should you get a watch, like, or invest in something else? Like, how would you pace yourself?
Right. So, okay, pacing yourself, you could get a watch to time yourself each time that you're doing your practice test. That's a really great idea. So, each time, obviously, you're going to have that initial time, and your goal after that and follow up times is to try to beat that initial time, to try to cut down that time as much as possible and to answer more questions. Now, another piece of advice I have regarding the passages is, for instance, if you have those 5 passages there, also see if you can rank the passages from the one that you feel like you could be most engaged in to the one that you already know you're going to be the least engaged in. And one of the tricks there is to put more of your effort into the top 3, 4 that you have on your list. And then on the 5th one, assuming that your time is just running out very quickly, choose one answer choice for that day that you want to mark, whether it's the first answer choice, the second answer choice, the third, or the fourth, and go straight down the line and bubble all those things in. Because at the end of the day, you want to have said that you've answered every last question, even if you ran out of time. So the recommendation is in that last 5 minutes of that test, choose one answer and go down the line. But for practicing, I would highly recommend a watch and just trying to competing with your time. But one thing I would say with that is don't stress yourself out about having being able to go through every single question adequately for every single passage. If it comes to the point that you're about to run out of time, don't panic or don't look at it as a moment of failure. Just bubble in some answers, and guess what? Some of those answers will be correct.
That's real. That's real right there. Like you just got to get it done at the end of the day. You can't be having blank answers. So that's definitely true. So now we're going to talk about the writing section. So this has 44 questions. You only have 35 minutes to complete this. So I know what could be tricky with this section is like understanding grammar rules. Like there could be many sentences that look correct and then but then you still have to pick an answer. So you're like, okay, like what do I do? So I know like if you're not really proficient in grammar or if it's not really your thing, like how should someone like approach like the writing section?
Okay, as far as grammar is concerned, there are these punctuation marks that you need to be very much aware of. And so, even if today you find yourself having a hard issue with them, I would just say take note of these punctuation marks like right now. So, the first one is the comma. Notice there on average, the SAT will test you probably on 4 to 5 of those rules. So, I highly recommend finding the rules on commas, finding worksheets on them. First, find out the examples. And you can Google this at any time. Find examples, right, to see how each type of grammar rule is implemented. Then Google grammar worksheets and try your hand at it yourself. The more you practice, the better you will become at understanding how the commas work. Now, the comma is out of all the punctuation marks, it is the trickiest punctuation mark you'll find on the SAT. But again, just like I said, if you take the time to practice, learn how the comma is used, and just constantly practice it, you're less likely to make mistakes when it comes to choosing the correct answer choice on the exam. Okay, the other punctuation mark to keep in mind is the apostrophe. Notice that always relates to ownership. So you want to be very careful that, for instance, if you're trying to make a case of a singular subject have possession, you always need to have an apostrophe S. Whereas if you had a plural subject, you need to have the S and apostrophe, right? So that's very important to keep in mind because I've actually seen students, even in college, make mistakes with the apostrophe. So you'll be surprised to find how many mistakes people make with the apostrophe. The other one that you need to keep in mind is the colon. So that's the 2 dots. It looks like the 2 dots just kind of sitting on top of each other when you're looking at the colon. Actually, when you look at the colon, the rules are pretty simple for that one. One thing you have to always remember with the colon is the restriction is that you always have to have a complete sentence to the left of it. And then it could be about anything to the right of the colon. And then the semicolon is the easiest one you'll ever know. You just have to take the time to learn it. It's just, you can be placed anywhere where you would put a period in a sentence. That's all you really need to know. So take the time to Google these punctuation marks as well as to Google worksheets that you can practice and practice as many times as you need to. So that is my biggest rule regarding grammar. I will also make sure I look up my pronouns, right? She, he, her, it, and all the forms of the pronouns, because you'll need to understand when it comes to singular and plural and how they're used in a sentence. And I mean, yeah, it makes a huge difference just Googling all of that. So I would most likely Google a general grammar review online and just study away with that. But outside of kind of what I've mentioned, you really don't have to nitpick at little small little areas, like for instance the period or the question mark, things of that nature. And also take a good look at the SAT practice test itself to see, like, okay, this is what I'm working with. And based on what you're seeing in your practice exam, go and Google those points, those question types, and then learn more about them.
Yeah. You gotta practice, you gotta practice. You need to look up these rules. I hope you had a pen and paper and wrote that down, because that's some valuable stuff right there. So next we have the math section. Oh my God, I hated this section. So there's two sections, one calculator, one no calculator. The no calculator has 20 questions with 25 minutes to do. The calculator is a little longer with 38 questions, and this is going to take 55 minutes to do. So I'm not a math person at all. Like, me and math are not friends. We could never have a date together. Like, no. Like, me and math, any type of math, algebra, geometry, no. So, and I know there's many people like this that just dread like this section because they're not 100% confident in like their math abilities. So how should students, especially ones that are not like the best at math, like approach this section?
Okay, I would take it from the beginning. I know that just in my experience working with several different students over time in my tutoring business, there's this perception that, hey, I need to come out the gate knowing the highest type of math that's going to be on this test. No, you don't. If you are at a lower level, go and look up information online on Google on how to work those type problems out. There are a ton of YouTube videos out there of people working out exact types of problems that you may have an issue with. Take the time to do that. There are free resources. YouTube, I've heard of good things about Khan Academy, all of these different resources. Take the time to watch the videos, go through the lessons, and practice. Practice, practice, practice. Even if you have to go to a lower level, never look at the practice material, for instance, and think to yourself, oh, I have to know this right now. If you don't know it right now, practice the basics that underlies that content and work your way up to the level you need to be. Because at the end of the day, just like you've practiced anything else in your life and got good at it, math is this math section, that's just another aspect of it. This whole test, that's just a whole nother aspect of it. You're just going to keep practicing. Also, what I started doing regarding music, especially when I was taking my test for graduate school, I started practicing this concept of related to timing, like pacing, because it is timed. You could write out on a piece of paper or a dry erase board a problem and play a song. Play any song that you want to play. I don't care. You can make it a song about 3 minutes long, 4 minutes long. See how long it takes you to work out the problem. And then the next time you play the song, see if you can beat that time. See if you get it done in less time. Play the song again, see if you get it done in less time, and keep doing it. And then if you're really bold, add 2 or 3 problems in there. So then you can keep competing against yourself each time and see how much can you speed up in the process, but still understand what you're doing. And I'm telling you, based on my own personal experience, it does give you a sense of confidence when you're done and you know you've gotten the answer correct and you've done it in a good amount of time.
That's really creative. I never thought of that. Like competing with music. Man, I'm gonna be playing some Nicki Minaj or practicing some algebra now. Like that's really cool. Also one thing with math, I also think that sometimes you just look at a question and you don't even know what they're asking for. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you're giving me this question. I really cannot interpret how to go about answering it. So what should someone do then when they approach a question that they're just confused, like they don't know what they're asking for?
That's a really good question. My biggest piece of advice there is break the problem down. Don't ever try to take in the problem just looking at it that one time and say, oh my goodness, I have to know everything at one moment. No, break it down. Go to the beginning. See what little piece of information they give you there. If you have your piece of paper to write it down, the information on, just do a little note about that. Move on to the next little section. Do the same thing, so on and so on until you've got to the end of that problem. And one other piece of advice I have, for instance, if you have a problem and it gives you all these numbers, one of the first things I want to do is write down those numbers. And I want to note how are they related to each other? What's the relationship? Because that can help me reach the next step in my problem. Do I need to multiply something? Do I need to divide, add, subtract, anything else? So I highly recommend those two pieces of advice, breaking down the problem piece by piece and also focusing very much on the numbers, because sometimes you will have some of those really long math problems and all that you need to do is focus on the three numbers, two or three numbers that they give you, and you don't even have to have all those words that they're throwing in your face. Sometimes they do that just to throw you off, and just to see if you're really paying attention to the main pieces, the meat of the problem.
Yeah, that's real. That's good advice. Yes. Next question. This is more of like a current events type thing. So, as of now, as I'm recording this, we're still in a pandemic, unfortunately. And I know that there's a lot of colleges that, because of this, are not like requiring students to take the SAT or the ACT, because there's many people that do not have like access to testing centers or could really afford to like pay for an exam right now. So I know everyone is in a different position with this, and there's students that can access it safely but are still deciding like, should I really? Like, I mean, if I'm off the hook, then I'm off the hook, you know? So if there's a student, like, I'm not for, if you know it's not the best for you to take this test, your safety is before SAT, ACT, so please don't do it. But if you are a student that has access to a testing center that can safely take this test, do you think that they should still take it or not, and why? Ooh.
And that that people have been in lately, students, assess whether they're required to take it or not. So they know they need to do that because the word on the street is that you're going to still be more competitive. When that admissions team looks at your application, they're going to look at their score in addition to everything else that's on that application. So if you want to have a better chance of getting in and getting your foot in the door, it'll be better for you to take it than to not. Don't assume that just because they're saying, oh, well, we're going to waive it. We don't, you know, you don't have to take that this year, that they're not still considering it when they're looking at a student's overall college application. So if you had to choose between one, taking it or not, I would highly recommend taking it for that reason.
Right. That was straightforward, man. If you can, do it. It won't hurt. Just wear a mask, okay? Don't be dumb. Please wear a
Yes,
mask.
yes, please wear a mask.
Um, Next is about resources. This is something I know many people like wonder when they're when they're junior year, sophomore year, preparing for this exam. What are resources, affordable resources like books or like websites that you recommend for students to use when studying, like for the SAT?
Well, for instance, the ACT.org is, I'm sorry, I'm thinking about College Board. The website related to the SAT is College Board. So you can do a Google search for that and just SAT College Board practice test. There are practice questions on the SAT website. Also, if you just did a general test on a general test practice search on Google for SAT, you can find a variety of practice tests that are free for you to use. Also, another great resource is the library. Some people don't think about that. Utilize your library. That is a free resource that you have to you. Yes, it is true that a lot of times these libraries will have books that are, okay, it might say, 2016 or 2017. And some people think, will that still be relevant? I was like, yes, based on my experience as a tutor, I have, for instance, books, standardized textbooks that were published some years back. And guess what? When I go to the store today and flip through the books of the one that says 2020 or 2021, guess what? 90% of the material is still exactly the same. So don't ever think that, okay, using the books at the library is something that's not an option, or that you're going to be thrown out the loop because you're using a book with a year that's not 2020 or 2021. Don't use that. Don't utilize that thought process.
Mm.
So those are really good free use resources to use. And I'm thinking, if your high school, for instance, has anything, don't be afraid to ask and reach out. If you have a school counselor, because they are full of knowledge as well. And they should have access to several resources they can pass along to you. So do not be a stranger to your school counselor if you have access to a school counselor.
Mm. All right. You guys need to go up to your library, do some curbside pickup, and get some practice books. And does it matter the type of brand? Because I know people are like, should I get Princeton? Should I get Kaplan? Should I just get the College Board? Should I get all of them? Like, does it matter like the type of brand? Is there like a brand that you prefer more than another?
Well, for me, literally when I picked up my practice book, when I started tutoring my students, I just saw a book on the shelf and I picked it up. And it just so happened the SAT book I picked up was the College Board book. Now, I don't have the experience to know all the books, but I personally believe, though, as long as you have a book that pretty much the company that has made it has gotten a lot of praise for its releases, it is a well-known company. I honestly don't see an issue of getting any of those type of SAT books as long as has credible, believable questions, content, any way for you to practice. Just pick something that allows you enough opportunities to practice.
Mm.
That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I hope you guys are getting the theme here. Practice, practice, practice. Like,
Yes, yes.
geez. And next is about like focus. Like when you actually sit down and study after like 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, like it could really, really hard to have discipline, to focus, and to just have stamina to like study because it takes so much of your time every time you're doing it. And especially when you get to the test, because it's hours and hours and hours, like it's really hard to not lose track of what you're doing and to just want to just close the book and take a nap. So, how should a student be persistent and focused like while studying for an exam? Like especially if you're not a very traditional um learner or person that studies like traditionally um you rely on like different mediums to understand things, but because it's like a paper and pen and a book, like that could be really hard to focus. So yeah.
I think of, like for instance, again with me, of my business, I'm incorporating music a lot with my students, especially more so recently, and specifically for non-traditional learners. I'm thinking, like, for instance, you just can't sit there for, an hour, 2 hours or whatnot, which I totally understand. That's exhausting doing that for so long. Look into a way to incorporate some of your favorite things into your study habit. I'm thinking using music, for instance, with a reading. One thing that I've done recently is I created some TikTok videos and I took some songs that I liked, specifically songs I liked when I was in college myself, like B2K, and I took a song one day and I created my own test questions. Like I literally looked at the type of test questions that my testing book had, and I was like, okay, let me see if I can try to mimic them in my own way. But I'm going to create my questions and answers going to be relevant to the song that I'm listening to right now that's in this TikTok video. So even if it's a 15-second snippet, take that little piece and then ask yourself, what is it talking about? And then I want you to make your own questions off of that. Of course, again, look at the types of questions that are being asked within your SAT book, whatever resource you're looking at, whether you're looking at the College Board website to look in their practice test, or you're looking at some other website, or you're looking at your book. Try to get as close as possible to the language that's being used. Okay, so definitely that's something you can do for the reading. Like I said earlier with the math, make it like a competition. Play your favorite song and just write that stuff out on the board. keep competing with yourself. That way you just kind of get livened up. You're not just sitting in one place just reading like, okay, this formula for the 50th time, I'm going to look at this formula and try to memorize it. If you have to, take those formulas, take a set of 10 formulas and write it out on the board a few times to one or two different songs, however you want to do it. So try to find a way to incorporate music, even with grammar. Try to see if you can find a song, write out your own sentences, including those punctuation marks that I talked about earlier, those very key punctuation marks. Make your own song about it, and you can even choose a song and make all the sentences about the little snippet in the song that you're even talking about. It doesn't even have to be those exact lyrics. Just you can make your own imaginary story up about that song, that concept that's been spoken of in that 15 or 30-second snippet, and make your own sentences just to make sure you include your punctuation marks. So find a way to include something that you like, for instance, like music, into it, and it makes it easier.
Wow, that's like really creative. Do you think in terms of discipline, like holding yourself accountable to study, because I know if you have like a testing class, like a test prep class, like the teacher would just give you homework to do every week and like do it, and then that would hold you accountable. But if you don't have the money for a test prep center to give you homework, like how do you do that for yourself?
Well, one thing I always recommend to my students who are testing and doing the standardized test prep, getting prepared for college, is have yourself a paper planner. Write out some time, carve out some time in your schedule. You need to take the time to actually write out your whole schedule anyway to know when the world your week consists of, because that's good practice for what? College. Okay.
That's true.
So
Yeah, that's
good
true.
practice for college. So go ahead and get that practice in now. Write it out on a planner. Look at what you have available. And if it seems like nothing seems to be available, you need to force some time there to be available. Because, sometimes how we get sometimes is like, oh, well, I would rather hang out with my friends this day and XYZ. And then that little block, like 4 hours block of time. Now, you need to cut that time in half. Now, come on now. Cut it on in half. Think about your future, right? That's important. Your friends, like my mother will always tell me, say, well, those friends, and when I was younger, those boys to be over there later, girl. Get to work now. You worry about the boys later. I mean, but she was right. So the same thing with friends too. The friends will always be there at some point in time. Take the time, use it wisely, and carve out some time for yourself. Hold your own self accountable that way. Every time you see it come up in your planner, you're like, oh, I need to do this. And also on top of that, if you have a phone, plug that thing into your electronic calendar so that thing will pop up and give you a reminder. Hey, this is what you need to do right now. Right?
Yeah, that's true. Planners work, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I've used it for college, they really work. And I would also say if you have friends that are also taking the test with you, like hold each other accountable. Maybe have like by the end of the day, have like a study recap session together. And that means if 8 p.m. you have to meet up with your friends, that means in the afternoon you should have been doing that work. In the morning you should have been doing that work so that you don't look dumb when you meet with your friends and you're the only one that don't have anything else to say. So definitely utilize your friends, utilize a planner, whatever you need to like make sure you sit down and study. Because I know it's annoying, but once you start, you could finish it. I know that for sure. And my last question is about test anxiety. This is something that a lot of people have, but nobody wants to talk about for some reason. Like, it's really scary to sit down and take this test because you're thinking about your future. Like, oh my gosh, if I fail, then I'm not going to go to college. And then if I don't go to a good college, then I'm not going to have a good life. I'm not going to have a good job. And if I don't have a good job, then I'm just going to be broke and I'm not going to have a good life. And then you're like thinking about all these things, but you have a 5-hour test to take. And then you just psych yourself out and you don't want to do anymore, or you just end up getting a lot of questions wrong when you know that you should. So obviously being nervous is normal, but how do you conquer like test anxiety when doing standardized tests?
Okay, first off, like if you're having a thought process like that, calm down, calm down. Also, I would encourage students, like for instance, we've all had and have experienced different challenges in our lives before. And if we're here today, right, that means we've overcome those challenges, right? And we may even be facing challenges now, and that's fine because that's just a part of life. But kind of think all the times when you had challenges in the past. when you were nervous about something, however you felt about it, and you didn't feel like you were going to do well, but it came out good on the other side, and you were glad, like, oh man, I'm so glad I took the time to, study, or I took the time to be courageous, and now I feel so much better and so much more powerful. Give yourself time to reflect on those moments and pump your own self up, praise yourself. Like, like people said, encourage yourself. Even if you don't have a crowd of people around you saying, hey, you can do it, tell yourself that, because you've already accomplished so many things already in the past, even if you don't feel like you have. I'm a person that looks at even smaller things that you've accomplished. That's still a victory for me, because you did get on the other side. You got from point A to point B, you made it, and you're done. First off, you need to calm down and tell yourself, yes, I can do this. I am fine. It is fine. And also tell yourself that your worth is not tied up in this exam and what you make on that exam. It is not
Yes.
tied up in that, because I mean, we're going to be honest, the exams don't really determine our intelligence at all. We're all unique individuals, and these exams don't determine our intelligence. So never allow something like that that's so minimal in your life control you, right?
Mhm.
Believe in yourself and know you can do it. And of course, it's always good to take breaks for yourself and do things that celebrate yourself. You study a little bit today, go celebrate yourself later on. Take yourself out to the movie or something. I don't know. I mean, well, be safe. Put your mask on now. Put your mask on.
Yeah.
Treat yourself somehow, right? Give yourself, like, praise yourself or reward yourself ever so often for what you're doing with your studying thing. And tell yourself, yes, I'm doing well. I'm improving. When you've done your practice test, you didn't do as well at first, but you did the practice test again, and now you improve. Yes,
Yeah.
praise yourself for that, reward yourself for that, and tell yourself each time, I'm getting even closer and closer to the goals that I'm trying to reach. And more than likely, I'm so much closer to the finish line, and that more than likely will be the case for me in my exam. So do not have that negative self-talk, because that will bring you down. Try to cut it out and tell yourself you can do it.
Wow. She was dropping some gems right there. I hope you all are paying attention. So that's all my interview questions. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom that you brought today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like your business For Other Prizes Consulting. Like, what inspired you to have like a full-time tutoring business, and how is your company like different than all the other companies out there? Like, I know you talked a lot about using music and other things like that. So yeah, how is For Other Prizes Consulting like?
Okay, yes. So For Other Prizes Consulting offers services in reading, math, up into pre-calculus, English, SAT prep, ACT prep, GRE prep, ASVAB prep, and GED prep. And so, yes, a huge way that is different from other tutoring companies is that I am implementing music, because I'm totally thinking about those non-traditional learners. Of course, I do work with traditional learners, and then I do traditional teaching as well. But for the non-traditional learners, I like to meet them where they are, and let's say, hey, let's try it this way. You learn better this way. Let's try it this way and see how we can further develop your skills, going this path, this route, because it's too often assumed that students just automatically come out of school and they know their knowledge is at such and such level, this high up level. For instance, is what the bigger tutoring companies do. The test prep companies, for instance, when they teach, as I've heard from students I've had in the past that I've tutored, when they teach, they kind of teach up at a really high level, making that assumption that, oh, these students already know this, but that's not the case. So what For Other Prizes Consulting is all about is looking at the gifts that you already have that you may not even see that you have, and utilizing those to not only see your gifts, but to build your knowledge, starting where you are, and build your knowledge to closer to what it needs to be for you to be successful, whether it's in school or on your standardized exam. So yes, that's definitely all about For Other Prizes, and how it stands out from other tutoring business.
Mm, wow. You guys need to check it out. Like, for real, for real. This sounds like amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, Jessica. This really means a lot. I'm sure many people appreciated all the wisdom you just dropped. So, lastly, where can people find you? And if they want extra test prep, where can they sign up?
Okay, so you can visit my website at www.forotherprizes.com. com. And so there will be a page on there that says client registration. Just go there and fill in the boxes, the field boxes there, and submit, and it'll come straight to me, and I'll be reaching out to you to contact you for your appointments. Also, you can find me at my Instagram page, which is the handle For Other Prizes, and that's FOROTHERPRIZES. And also, there's my Facebook business page, which is For Other Prizes as well. That's the same handle as is the case for my Instagram. And then my email address is jjbonner@forotherprizes.com.
All right. That's it, y'all. That's all the wisdom that we got for y'all today. Thank you so much again, Jessica, for meeting with me. This really means a lot.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself today.
Hey, y'all. I'm here to introduce this episode's sponsor, which is Anchor. Anchor has been so helpful in helping me make a podcast, and I love it. And here's why you should love it too. So first, it's free. That already speaks for itself. Next, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. So it makes things super easy. Next, it'll distribute your podcast for you. So with one click, it could be sent to Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many other platforms. You can also make money from your podcast with barely any listeners. You don't have to get 1 million downloads to make money. You can start right now. It's basically everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So if you've been meaning to make a podcast and you don't even know where to start, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's me. That's it, y'all. Now, let's get back to regularly scheduled programming. All right, y'all. So that's the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Jessica is so wonderful. So if you need any test prep whatsoever, hit her up at For Other Prizes Consulting. She could definitely help you out. And now it's time for the culture shout out, where I shout out a small business or a creator that is melanated. So the culture shout out for today goes to the clothing line My Mom Is Also My Dad, which was created by my good friend Arjahn. She's a talented Black fashion college student from Parsons, and she makes very one-of-a-kind clothes. So if you want something one-of-a-kind that nobody's ever seen before, then you need to hit her clothing line up, okay? And you're going to get compliments left and right, I'm telling you. So every piece is unisex and is handmade, and she makes many different types of clothes, like tops, jackets, bottoms, like whatever you want. And if you want something more custom made that fits your style, she'll also be happy to make you something and help you out. So all her items are sold through Instagram DM at My Mom's Also My Dad, and through her Depop at Arjahn. So if you're looking for some one-of-a-kind clothes to fit your closet, definitely go to at My Mom's Also My Dad on Instagram or her Depop at Arjahn and treat yourself. Have a blast. And if you want a culture shout out of your own, you have a business or you create many beautiful things, then you could email me at collegefortheculture@gmail.com. And if you have any thoughts on this episode or ideas on what I should talk about next, hit me up on our IG at College for the Culture. Remember, we're in a pandemic. Please wear a mask, social distance. It's really important. You get to protect yourself and your family and the many people around you who cannot protect themselves, okay? Also, in more global news, Nigeria has been facing a lot of police brutality. There's an End SARS movement going on, which is the police unit that they're trying to abolish. So please educate yourselves, raise awareness about it. Even though it's not in your backyard, it's definitely something that you should look into. Like, police brutality happens globally, not just in America. So definitely look into that. There's also been a genocide happening in Congo and a lot of gender-based violence happening in Namibia as well. Just like educate yourself and research all the different issues that are going around all around the world. And I know that those movements will definitely appreciate it. So, yeah, that's it from me. If you want to talk to me about your college situation specifically or how it can help you in your college process, email me at collegefortheculture@gmail.com and I'll be happy to help you out. Hit us up on our IG at College for the Culture. There's also a lot more different types of content on there. And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you take care of yourselves this week, okay? God bless you all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.